Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm very excited to be sharing the upcoming collection from Goodnight Polish called Love is a Battlefield. Goodnight Polish is a new-ish indie brand. They are based in New Jersey and they do have a number of polishes already available in their catalog. I was gonna say they're also a new brand to me, but you might remember me recently sharing their charity polish, which I want to share again in this video. But yeah, the Love is a Battlefield collection is a little quad of these mixed finish formulas. And I also have their new matte top coat. So as always, I'll share more thoughts at the end along with the launch info for these. But for now, let's just look at the swatches. The first polish in the collection is called Love's Expensive, Poison's Cheap, and this one is a matte slime green polish with pink, orange, yellow, and green flakes. It also looks like it has a really dainty orange shimmer as well. This had a really smooth formula. Even though it is pretty packed with all the flakies, I didn't find it difficult to work with at all, and it got really even coverage on the first coat alone. But as expected, you can see a bit of nail line because it is a jelly after all. I personally think it looks really great and passable on two coats, so I kind of left it here. I didn't do a third coat just because I didn't think it was necessary, though I imagine if you have longer nails, you might want to opt for that. I know lately in my review videos, I've been showing a blurring base underneath sheer jelly polishes, but I thought this one was a little bit too pigmented to benefit from a blurring base, so I'm just showing the two coats on my full hand swatch, and you can see how it dries down in the matte finish. I would of course recommend using a matte top coat, which I will be showing later, but I also just added a glossy top coat so you can see how that looks. And yeah, I would say this is a pretty typical prugly green. I'm not sure if I really love this shade on me, but I kind of like it in theory. There's something about it that kind of has this earthy quality to it, sort of reminding me of a forest floor, so I like it for that reason. The next shade is called Leave 'em Breathless, and this is a thermal that transitions from lavender when warm, which you'll see in a minute, to purple when cold, as seen here, and it also has a blue shimmer. So initially for my live swatch here, I was running really cold, and I forgot that this was a thermal, so I had to refilm the hot aspect, which you'll see in a minute, but even in my full hand swatch, you'll see the transition. But yeah, as far as the formula goes, it was so silky smooth. It just applies like butter. It wasn't 100% even like the last polish, at least on the first coat, but it pretty much evened out on the second coat. As you can see here, I feel like the cold state of the color is just so striking and beautiful, and because it's a little bit darker, I don't think you would need a third coat for it, but because it's a thermal and if you're running really warm, you are going to see more of your nail coming through because the warm state is a much lighter lavender shade, so I'm also showing a third coat here for that. I think the third coat definitely helps to obscure the visible nail line, even my half moon, like it's still there if you look close enough, but I think it looks great on three coats, and honestly I still liked how it looked in the two coats, as you can see here on my full hand swatch, because it just has that really gorgeous glowy ethereal vibe. You already know I love that, and this is already an easy favorite because it's that purple base with a glowy blue shimmer, that 1-2 combo that's gonna hit every single time. The next shade we have is called Heart Seeker, and this one is a magnetic. It's described as being a deep plum base with hollow flakies, and I thought it was such an interesting description because I wouldn't call this plum at all. To me, plums are very purple, but when I think of biting into a plum, I could see this being really similar to red plums, right? So I get it. This one had another fantastic formula, super smooth and easy to apply, very highly pigmented as well, so even though it is slightly on the jelly side, I found it pretty much fully opaque for me in just the two coats, which isn't surprising since it is a slightly darker kind of color, and it magnetized really easily as well. I love the contrast of that fuchsia sort of shimmer color and the little hollow flakies in the background, and for my full full hand swatch, I'm showing 2 coats in the different magnetic effects. So I have the glass bead on my pointer, the velvet on my middle, cat eye on my ring, and then unmagnetize on my pinky. I want to say that the magnetic shimmer in here almost has this slight duochrome vibe, because as you saw in the brighter indirect lighting, it was very fuchsia, like purple leaning, but then in lower lighting, it looks really red. And rounding out the collection, we have Kiss from a Rogue, and this one is just described as a gray base with a pink shimmer. I would say the gray base is a little bit on the jelly, crelly leaning side. You can see here on the first coat, it's decently pigmented, but there is still some visible nail line showing. But I feel like the second coat really obscured it. Of course, it could also depend on your application and your nail length. If you do tend to do much thinner coats or you have longer nails, you might need a third for this one, but I really loved how it looked in 2. This had another super silky kind of formula, just so satisfying to apply, especially with their brushes. I don't think I pointed that out at all in my review so far, but I love the rounded paddle brush in here. It's just the perfect shape and width and just so satisfying. So yeah, just a gray shimmer, you know, maybe the most simple of the quad, but still very pretty. You probably already saw me swatch their charity shade called Icebreaker, but I felt like sharing it again in this video, and it's such a gorgeous polish. It's a sky blue jelly base that it's filled with these iridescent flakies that I would say are mainly in these aqua, green, and blue and purple kind of color combinations. Just so beautiful. And I completely forgot to mention this in my initial charity swatch video, but this is another polish that dries down matte, so it is a pretty similar finish to the first polish I shared in the collection, Love's Expensive, Poison's Cheap, being a jelly iridescent flaky combo. I'm not sure if all of her jelly flakies dry down matte, but yeah, I wanted to show that here on my full hand swatch. I think this polish might be a little bit thicker than the green, because I noticed the green dried down a bit faster to a fully matte finish, while it looks a little bit satin here, so I imagine it's just because I did slightly thicker coats. Either way, again, I would recommend using a matte top coat because you're just gonna wipe off your nail polish. And I also wanted to show this with a glossy top coat again because I think it just looks so bright and beautiful. I love the way the iridescent flakies glow in this. It's just such a pretty color combination. And finally, we have their matte top coat called Matte Maker. And I'm actually going to be swatching this over black because I feel like it's the best way to see a matte top coat dry down. So you can see that I sped up the drying process here a bit. I don't know if I just did a pretty thick coat here, but I feel like it didn't dry down 100% matte. Like there's still a slightly satin kind of finish, which might be easier to see once I do some comparisons later. But yeah, I did also want to show all of the polishes together. So I'm wearing the collection as a skittle on my 4 fingers here, and then the charity shade on my thumb. Again, wearing 2 coats each, and I let them dry down naturally so you can see the matte finish on my pointer and thumb, hopefully. And here is the same skittle with the Matte Maker top coat on top. So I feel like it does make the matte polishes a little bit more matte. I feel like the other shades as well, the shimmers, look very matte, so maybe I did end up doing a thinner coat here and that's why they look better. I can't really say for sure. Moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Love's Expensive, and this one immediately reminded me of Mooncat's Prickly Pear, which is no longer around, and I sadly don't have mine anymore, but it's a matte green jelly polish with iridescent flakies, though I would say Mooncat has more flakies and they're more orange overall. Next for Leave 'em Breathless, seeing it in the cold state or just in the bottle, it immediately reminded me of Cracked Polish's Infinite Thrill, which was one of their collab shades with Ethereal, one of my favorite cracked shades, and a shame it's not around anymore, so I was hoping the Goodnight would be a dupe for it, even though it technically is a thermal. But I think the Cracked is a bit of a darker base with a maybe more finely milled shimmer. There's something about it that looks a little bit more glowy in comparison. But for an actual thermal comparison, I immediately thought of Fauve's Irises, which I think came out in the Van Gogh collection, which has a similar purple base in the cold state as seen here, but it's more of a green shimmer. And the other main difference is that the warm state of the color is more of a teal green instead of a purple. So then I figured I could also show it next to Fauve's Matisse's Mirage from their Maker Series collection last year. I didn't initially think to show this because in the cold state, the Fauve is a lot more blue compared to purple, but the warm state is kind of similar. It's maybe a bit darker, and again, I would say the shimmer in Fauve is a little bit more green, so still not exact dupes. Next for Heartseeker, I knew I had to show this next to Holo Taco's Love Spell, which was one of their very first magnetic polishes. Sadly, not around anymore, but it was kind of recently replaced with Flirt Alert in their most recent Valentine's Day launch. That one is a much brighter raspberry hot pink kind of color, so I would say that Love Spell is extremely close. Like if I'm being super nitpicky, I think Love Spell might be a shade or two brighter or just more red, but the magnetic shimmer is basically the same. They both have those little silver hollow flakies in the background, so I think I would go as far as calling Heartseeker a dupe. Then for Kiss from a Rogue, this one immediately reminded me of Holo Taco's Spirit Fingers from the Sophia collab, being a gray base with a super bright reddish pink shimmer, but the shimmer is definitely a lot more pink compared to red. Spirit Fingers also has a dainty hollow in the background and much more of a cooler toned gray base. For Icebreaker, I figured I could show again my comparison to Mooncat's Don't Cry Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls collab. It's another sky blue jelly with iridescent flakies. There are some additional yellow round glitters in the Mooncat, but if you happen to not get any on your nail, it does look really close to Icebreaker. And lastly, we're going to see how Matte Maker compares to other matte top coats that I have. So we have Holo Taco's Matte Taco, which I'm going to have on my pinky, ILNP's Frosted Glass, which will be on my ring finger, and Mooncat's Matte Made in Hell on my pointer finger. Again, I'm wearing 2 coats of a black polish, so you can see how shiny and glossy it is before applying 1 coat of each respective matte top coat. You can see that Holo Taco has dried down to a fully matte finish, and I know that I've gotten that same exact finish from both ILNP and Mooncat before too, so I'm not sure if I just happened to do a much thinner coat for the Holo Taco, but either way, you can see the Mooncat was also a little bit streaky for me, so maybe it was just my application. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Goodnight Polish's upcoming Love is a Battlefield collection. These are going to be launching on March 13th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. So as always, I will have their website in the description box if you want to check them out. But their charity polish is already available. So yeah, I would love to know what you think of this release. If you have heard of Goodnight Polish before, like I mentioned in the intro, they are kind of a new-ish brand. They've only been around for a number of months, but they seem to have a decent amount of polishes on their website already. And I thought this was a really nice collection. I appreciate that it's like a small, a quad, but they are different finishes. So you get a little bit of everything, and they all performed really well. They have a beautiful brush, beautiful application. I think I would say my favorite from the release is the magnetic, because I just love that color and I think it's a gorgeous polish. It magnetizes easily. And I really hope that a lot of people will be excited that it is like a near perfect dupe for Holo Taco's Love Spell, which is a retired shade. I know some people don't love that when like indies come out with polishes that are similar to, what other boutique brands have to offer or like what they retired. But I honestly just see it as a win because you don't need to pine after the specific Holo Taco shade or hunt for it in a D-stash because there's another available option. And as much as I hate to say it, I did also really love the thermal. I just think it's such a beautiful color combination. It's just so pretty. I'm hoping that it'll last a while, but again, whenever it comes to like a brand releasing thermal polishes, especially if it's a newer brand, we kind of just have to wait and see the longevity on them. So maybe in a couple of months or something, it'll be worth like retesting them, because I don't know if it's just me, I probably should have looked back on the original swatch footage of the Fauve thermals that I compared it to, because I feel like in the comparison, the Fauves just kind of didn't look as vibrant as I remembered them, but maybe I'm just misremembering them. So it would be a shame if they did start fading already, but you know, that's kind of the nature of thermal polishes. I feel like a lot of brands, especially the bigger brands, have a reputation of at least the thermals lasting a couple of years. Some brands are better than others, but yeah, whenever it's like a smaller, you know, newer indie brand, it's just kind of hard to tell. So yeah, I can't help but just give my little disclaimer about thermals in case you've never tried them before. They are pretty, but you know, just make sure you know what you're getting into. But yeah, other than that, let me know what you think of these, if you're interested in picking any of them up, or let me know if you'd already picked up their charity polish, which I shared a couple of weeks ago on my channel, or just let me know any and all thoughts you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!